Women have been giving birth for centuries, so it's a pretty natural experience, right? Wrong. I'm Stephanie King, professional doula, childbirth educator, and the creator of the My Essential Birth course, the online childbirth education course that's helping women everywhere confidently achieve their best birth. Today's culture would have us think that birth should be treated like an illness or an emergency, and that most of us need other people telling us what's best for our bodies because we aren't the experts. So sit tight, because if you're tuning into this podcast, you'll probably start to believe in your body, your intuition, and find yourself empowered and confident to do what it takes to have the birth of your dreams. If you like listening to me take you through these weekly topics step by step, then you're going to love the My Essential Birth course. Make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast, and definitely head over to myessentialbirth.com for the free downloads mentioned right here in these episodes, and to join the birth course and community full of pregnant moms just like you. I have to add a disclaimer that I am not a medical professional and I cannot provide medical advice. All of the information expressed in this podcast are based off of personal, professional, and educational experiences and are my own opinions. Please work with a provider you trust for medical advice during your pregnancy and birth. Welcome back to this week's podcast. Our reviewer of the week is YGBSBJX. So if that's you, thanks for leaving a review. She says, "Thank you. Hi, Stephanie. I'm in my third trimester and was very determined to not study up too much about giving birth, just to preserve the mystery and romance and natural process of it. Then I stumbled upon this podcast, and now I can't help but listen to every episode, and I'm taking the online birth course. I can't believe all the information I have learned, and now I have so many questions for my next prenatal appointment. I also feel empowered that although I won't be having a home birth due to my husband's concerns, I know enough how to advocate for myself in the hospital to have the best birth I can try to have. I had no idea how many options, choices, and decisions there are to be made that no one even talks to you about. Thank you." I love that you have come to the podcast and found all that information. I kind of love the idea of not wanting to read anything about it to not ruin the romance. I completely understand that. But I also love that you are here and doing the hard work and you're getting a ton out of it. I'm actually really excited for today's episode. These are my favorites that I do on here. And so we are looking at another birth story. And so with that, Taryn, will you take a moment and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm Taryn. I live in a super small town in South Dakota, like 1,200 people, so really small.
Yeah.
I have been married to my husband, John, for almost 6 years now. We have 3 little girls. One is 4, 1, and then our youngest was just 6 weeks yesterday. So
Oh my goodness.
birth story is really fresh on my mind here.
Yeah, I bet. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Where are they right now? Like, how is it quiet in your
one
house?
is napping. Yeah, it is. I'm hiding downstairs in my basement.
I love it.
One is napping, and then my husband's up with the other 2.
Oh, good husband. I love it.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your pregnancy. I guess this last one, but if you want to share prior pregnancies and kind of bring that into, talk to me about maybe what those were like versus this one, and then what this pregnancy was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my husband, we decided to get pregnant right after we got married. So it came really easily for us the first time, and there was no complications. Our closest hospital that actually delivers babies is an hour away from us. So like every appointment, we had to drive an hour, and so that's just kind of frustrating sometimes. But no complications with her. And I was induced again, but I had one provider with her, and then after I had her, I decided to switch providers to my current one. So we just kind of had some things that we didn't agree on and gotten some arguments. So, but then my second one too was really, in 2020, actually, we had 3 miscarriages. So that was when we were trying to get pregnant with our second born. And so we did all the things and actually ended up going to a fertility clinic. And then when we decided we were ready to try again, we got pregnant and she stuck, and it was really a normal pregnancy. I did have some pelvic pain with her, but besides that, it was all really good. And we were with our new provider who was with us through all of our miscarriages. And he's the best. He prays over us, before our ultrasounds, and prays over himself before procedures and stuff. So I love him. And he cried when she was born because he was so excited for us. So we really love him. And then I was nursing her, and at when she was 8 months old, I found out I was pregnant again with our most recent one. So
That's
we went from like
awesome.
struggling to like, having a fun little surprise in there. So that was kind of fun. But with her, I started having my pelvic pain quite early, but I went to the chiropractor and we really stayed on top of it with that and stuff. But besides that, no complications. And I was induced all 3 times. So it was kind of like standard. I was really hoping that I wouldn't have to get induced this time, but we ended up, it's January and there's lots of blizzards and like roads closed all through South Dakota. It's been like the worst winter we've had in like 8 years. So I was like, induce me so I know I can make it to the hospital.
Yeah. Can I ask, because you mentioned switching providers and being much happier with this one, was it at the same hospital?
It is at the same hospital.
Okay.
He actually just delivers at the hospital. He has his own private practice so that he's not like under anyone.
Awesome.
For all of his
That's
clinic
cool.
appointments and stuff. It's a private practice and he's just contracted through the hospital.
Very cool. What was it, if you don't mind me asking, that made you decide it's time to switch, and how did you find a provider you loved?
With my provider, with my first, he was just very like, well, this is how I do things. And it was way before I was like, I'm a very like self-proclaimed obsessed with like learning about breastfeeding and being pregnant and everything that is labor and delivery. And so it was kind of before I was doing all of that research. So I was just kind of like, well, this is how it is. And her delivery really, it went well, but I feel like the nurses that we had weren't very supportive. I wanted to go unmedicated all of my pregnancies and all of my deliveries, but it didn't happen with my first 2. And I think it was really because of my preparation and because of like how he came to all of the decisions during my labor. And it was just very like, he didn't make me feel like I had any options. And he was just kind of like, well, this is what we're doing next. And I was young. I was 23. Like I didn't really know my options or what I could like say yes or no to. So between that and some of the like bigger things that we disagreed on during appointments, I was very adamant that for my next pregnancy, I was going to have a different doctor. And my sister actually lives in the same town as us. It's the same town that I grew up in and was born in. And so she told me about her doctor that she had, and she actually had all C-sections for hers. And she's like, you will love him. I promise. He's very natural minded. And so I went to him before we got pregnant with our second. And I absolutely loved him right from the get-go. And I asked him like all of the questions that bothered me from my first pregnancy before I was even pregnant, to know that he was the provider that I wanted to go with had I gotten pregnant again.
That's awesome. I love it. I love that so much. So is this provider, are they both OBs? Is this an MD?
Yep, they are both OBs.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. I love it. Talk to me a little bit about your birth partner or your husband. How did his role change, if it did, or how did he support you through those 3 pregnancies up to this last one?
I feel like our first pregnancy, it was just kind of like we were both so young, and like he didn't have any brothers or sisters who had kids before. I have 2 sisters, and my oldest had been pregnant, but we really didn't like know much of what we were doing. So we just kind of like sat and waited for the 9 months to run out so that we could have the kid. And so I feel like the first one, it was just kind of like we were finding our groove. And I know you've said before too that it took you guys a while to find your groove with each other. Yes. It took you a couple deliveries. And I feel like that's really our story too. It took us a while for him to be like, oh my goodness, like this is really hard on you. Like there's things that I can help you with. And there's different ways that I can be supportive. So especially when we started having other kids on top of me being pregnant, he was just very helpful with the kids and like heavy lifting and anything like that. And anytime he could tell that I was in pain with my pubic symphysis that I had, he was very run to my rescue and had me stop whatever I was doing. And he was like, let me do it. Let me take care of it. But he's a farmer too. So there's a lot of seasons where he's not home very much.
Wow.
So,
yeah. That's great. It sounds like he was very helpful where he could be. I love that.
Yes, definitely. Especially getting up with kids at night when my stomach was too big to allow me to get up.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, very much.
All right. Well, how about some of your preparation that you did, kind of coming up to this pregnancy, especially? So we know, you took the birth course and all of that. Did it change in preparation that you had done for your prior births? Because you had mentioned the other two were not medicated versus this one.
Yep.
What was the difference there for you?
I think mental prep was such a big thing that I didn't know I needed. With my first two, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm tough. I can go in and I can do this with no epidural. And then I really, each time my pain would get on top of me so fast that my brain couldn't, I didn't develop the right coping skills. And so each time I was like, oh my goodness, this is so much worse than I remember. This is so much worse than people explained it to me. And like, I didn't have the right mindset to be like, no, this is okay. I can take it one contraction at a time. Like I can do anything for 1 minute. So definitely the mental prep changed a lot. And I did like the 3 exercises that you talk about. I actually did, I don't know if I heard it on your guys' podcast or someone else's, but I did a thing where you hold ice in your hand over the sink. And and you see how long you can hold it. And I was like, oh my goodness, you have no idea how cold ice is until you're holding it in your hand for like 45 seconds. And so that helped a lot. And just like the relaxation techniques with essential oils and all of that really helped me get into the right mind space to be able to keep on top of my pain instead of my pain getting on top of me.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. It's so interesting how much of a mental game birth is. And I know that I've shared about that a lot. The closest thing I've done to it, and I think it's why I loved it so much, was running my very first half marathon. And it was like, it was mental. It's like your body can actually keep going if your mind tells it to, if you train your mind to tell your body that it can do those things. And that's so the way that it is in birth. You know, we talk about this labor land that we get into. It's very real. It's you're present. You're like, your body's physically present here and you're aware of what's going on, but you're in a different place. And to be able to control those thoughts, that energy while you're giving birth, it's a very, very powerful thing. And it's why having good support like you have done, like surrounding yourself with that good support is so crucial, because it's such a sensitive space too, that if those negative things, even the slightest bit come in, you start to doubt, you start to bad self-talk, you lose it, you feel the pain more than you ever have. It completely changes it, versus when you have that support. Oh my gosh, I can do this. Oh, I'm feeling lighter and brighter and I can see the end. And it's so interesting. But I love that you're talking about kind of that mental muscle that you have to flex, that you have to grow in order to be able to get through that process. It's very real.
Yeah, it's so real. And I really didn't know what that was going to be like, because with my other two, I mean, I had epidural, so I just kind of like laid there and I was like, okay, we're just chilling until they tell me I'm ready to go. But this last time when you guys talk about labor land, I'm always like, I wonder what that is. Like, what do they mean by that? But I remember specifically one contraction that everyone's voices sounded so far away. It sounded like I was like 3 doors down from where everyone else was. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is labor land. Here I am. Like my brain is totally not in this room with all these people right now. Like I'm just focusing and doing my thing.
Yeah, I would assume it's like the closest thing to an out-of-body experience that you could experience while literally being in your body. Like it's so interesting. Yes. Yeah, different land for sure. What were some things that you did kind of on the daily, or what do you think helped prepare you the most out of anything? Was it doing those 3 exercises? What is it? Meditation practice, relaxation, talking with your husband? What was it that really prepared you?
I feel like the relaxation practice helped a ton, and I'm already an essential oil nut. So I like had a lot of fun, like combining my own little like scent that I was like, this is going to be my labor scent. It's going to send me into this awesome place. I feel like the mental was really a huge thing for me. And also having the right support people around you. I had actually had my sister come with us this time. She's a nurse, and we have a super small hospital here in our little town, and she's a nurse here, and we used to deliver babies here, but we don't anymore. And she was one of the nurses that was trained that would come in for labor and delivery. So I was like, you know what? I need you with me, because my husband, like, God bless him, I know he always wants to do what's best for me, but if I'm like, I'm in pain, he's like, okay, I'll call. Like, how can we make you feel better? And my sister maybe doesn't have so much sympathy towards my pain that she was like, nah, you can do this. So I was like, I want her there. I know that she can push me maybe a little bit harder than John would be able to.
Oh, I love that.
So that helped a lot.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Were there specific podcasts that you listened to, like podcast topics on this podcast, or even things that you learned within the birth course that really stood out to you that you're like, I didn't know this and I really enjoyed learning it, or this was really great for my birth partner, or I used this to prepare specifically?
I listened to, there was like 3 of the episodes of your guys's that I listened to literally on repeat, like probably 6 times each. And one of them was the water, how to use that one to manage pain. And then one of them was do these things to have more pain when you're in labor and delivery. And I was like, okay, I need to like get these embedded into my brain so that I can remember what not to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really helped a lot because it wasn't like, oh, John, look in my notes. And I wrote down like these things that I heard on this podcast. Like I listened to it so many times that while I was in it, I was like, okay, don't furrow your eyebrows. Like make sure that your face is really loose. Make sure that your jaw is really loose. And honestly, I was actually just talking to my sister about it yesterday again. And I was like, I think the most helpful thing was focusing on my eyebrows. Like, I know that sounds so weird, but I remember you guys talking about like women in movies and like on clip art, how their faces look like they're in so much pain. And it's like, yeah, because you're tensing up and you're acting like you're in a lot of pain. So the whole time I was just like, just don't furrow your eyebrows and everything is going to be okay. And you're staying loose and your contractions are pushing your baby down. So that was weirdly like the thing that really distracted my brain and helped me stay focused the most on relaxing was just my eyebrows.
I love that. It's crucial, actually. For those of you that are listening, I will link both of those episodes in the show notes. But it's so true because if you can get this part of your face relaxed, then everything else is forced to relax. And so if you've got that focus, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was great. My sister kept saying to me, like, are you having contractions? Like before I was like moaning out in them, she was like, I can't read your face at all. And I was like, I'm just focusing on my eyebrows.
That's awesome. I love it. That's so perfect too. Like sister couldn't even tell because the eyebrows were, it's the easiest thing it's like the first place that we go like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. Even though it's not the thing that is maybe the tensing the most, but it forces all the other to relax. So that's really awesome.
It does. It was so weird to experience, but it was awesome.
Yeah. Were there things that you did coming up to your, like towards the end of your pregnancy, that you think helped prepare your body to go into labor? Things like drinking red raspberry leaf, eating dates, evening primrose oil, acupressure. Was there anything that way that you did?
I continually went to the chiropractor every week through my pregnancy. And I feel like that helped a lot because we got a new chiropractor in town and she's like certified in spinning babies and like went on an extra 2 years to like work on pregnant women and babies.
Do you want to put her name here? And I can make sure it will link to her.
Yeah, I can. Her name is Marina Kimball.
Awesome. Okay.
Yep. And she works at Begin Within in town here and she's just awesome. And has so much advice and is so encouraging. And she was actually pregnant at the same time as me too. So that was just kind of fun to experience together. And then it's hard to tell what helped since it was a back-to-back pregnancy. Like, I don't know if my body was just like, hey, I remember doing this last year. So I'm getting myself ready for it again. Or if it was the different things that I tried, because with the first 2, I never tried anything at all to get me ready. This time I did the dates. Starting at like 35 weeks, I think. And then at 36 weeks, I started the red raspberry leaf tea. And I drank that stuff like it was going out of style. Like I can't drink coffee when I'm pregnant. And that tasted so good. And it was so warm at night. Like we were having all these blizzards and I'd put a little honey in it. And I was like, the last like 2 weeks, I think I was up to like 2 or 3 cups a day. Because I was like, this tastes so good and it's so relaxing. And then I did notice my Braxton Hicks contractions were picking up and like just getting more like a Charlie horse kind of instead of just like a tightening. So I did notice that with the red raspberry leaf tea, but I definitely was progressed the farthest with this pregnancy going into the induction than I was with the other 2.
That's really neat. So do you happen to remember any of the like information that you had in those final weeks for each pregnancy and how that differed with the last one?
Yeah, I really didn't look into like anything at all with my first. And I remember he told me I was barely 1 centimeter when I went in at over 41 weeks to get induced. Yeah. And then with my second, I was at 1 centimeter and like 20% effaced or something like that. It wasn't.
Was that at 41 weeks again?
It was at 40 that time.
Okay.
Yep. And then this time I was a day before 40 when I got induced. I was 39 and 6, and I was 4 centimeters dilated and 80% effaced.
So very different.
Very different, which I was really excited about because I was like, okay, well, less labor at least this way. Like I'm halfway there already almost.
That's awesome. It's so true when you look at it like that. Yes, it's so good. I love it.
I remember like being discouraged because I stayed at 4 centimeters for like my last 2 appointments. I got checked and I tried to do a membrane sweep, and I was texting one of my friends and I was like, man, I'm still at 4. And she was like, girl, you're halfway to pushing. Like you're almost there already and you haven't even started.
Oh, everybody needs that friend.
Yeah, it's encouraging when you put it in different perspectives.
Definitely. Okay, take me through from the very first contraction all the way through the birth.
Yes. So I had been having quite irregular, like stronger than Braxton Hicks, but not like contractions that I was like, ooh, something's going to happen. And we are right in between. We were having blizzards like every 2 weeks that were like 20 some inches of snow each time, and all of the highways were shut down. And so my doctor was very like, if you don't want to get induced, like I won't induce you. It's totally up to you. And then I just kind of started having a feeling that I was like, I want to make sure I can make it to a hospital because we're in a very small town. We have no like NICU team or anything like that. And so once we were in between 2 blizzards and we were supposed to get another one the week of my due date. So I was like, you know what, let's just do it. Like it works well with my sister's work schedule because she was working like 3 12-hour shifts in a row. And so he had me come in. And we had to be there at 5 o'clock in the morning. So since my hospital is an hour away, we had to get up at like 3:30 in the morning. So my mom had my older 2 girls the night before. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bed at 7, trying to rest up as much as I could. And then they were actually so busy. They had so many ladies go into labor on their own that they were so busy they didn't have enough nurses, since it's also the closest hospital is still a pretty small one. And so they were calling nurses to try and get someone to come in to be specifically my nurse, because my doctor was like, if we don't have someone being one-on-one with you, like I can't induce you. That's just not safe. Like I want you to have one-on-one care with nurses. And so finally a nurse called and she was like, oh my goodness, yeah, don't send her home. If she lives an hour away, I'll come in. So since I was 4 centimeters, he did not want to do Cytotec, which is how I got induced with my previous 2, because he was like, once I insert that, I can't take it back out. And he's like, if it starts distressing the baby or like things start moving too fast, like I can't really reverse that or do anything about that. So he asked me if it was okay if he started me on PIT, and then he was going to keep me on the lowest dose and hope my body took over and then just turn it off. So we did that. We started PIT at, let's see, I wrote it down here.
Oh, I love that you have notes. That's so fun.
I went in and like on my chart online and I like looked at what time everything was done.
Oh, that's so cool.
At around 10:30, we started Pitocin. And so really like I was just kind of crampy and we were walking and I was bouncing on the ball and just trying to get things moving. And at a little after 11, he came in and I was like, let's get things moving. So I asked him to break my water because that really got things going with my previous 2. I kind of stalled before that. So he broke my water, and about 30 minutes later, things started getting quite intense. Like I would kind of, when we were walking in the hallway, I'd have to stop and like not really talk to John while I was like working through my contraction. Then I'd start walking again. And it wasn't bad enough that I wanted to stay in my room because I don't like doing stuff in front of people and having people watch me. And there was like nurses in the hallway and other women and stuff. So it wasn't to that point yet. But then they got pretty strong and I was bouncing on the ball in my room. And I remember looking at my sister and I was like, man, you know, if I really only dilated 1 more centimeter, like this is going to take all day. And I don't know if I can do this. And a nurse came in. She's like, do you want me to check you? And I was like, yes, because with my other 2, even though I had an epidural, once I hit like 6, 7 centimeters, I went like within 20 minutes I was pushing. Wow. I always went super, super fast at the end, which my mom said that's exactly how her labors were too. So
interesting.
I was like, I just need to make it to 6 or 7. And then I think I'll get in the tub or something. And I was at a 5 and I was a little discouraged by that. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this all day. And I don't really think it was because it was too painful. I think I was just like, already had in my head that things were going to go like my other two. And I was like, I'm going to get tired. I'm going to get exhausted. Like, I just kind of want to sleep. Like, I was almost just being lazy about it. And then my sister was like, no, like, let's get in the tub. Like, come on. Once you get to 6 or 7, you know, you're going to go like that. It'll go super, super fast. And thankfully, my doctor is super chill. And he was like, absolutely, you can get in the tub, even though I broke your water. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. So I got in the tub and things really started picking up then. And my sister turned on some of my favorite like Christian music that I was listening to. And my husband was like pouring water over my tummy. And that's when I kind of started having to moan through my contractions. I was really like, it felt so dramatic while I was doing it, but it helped so much.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of, and I think it just sounded really loud in that little bathroom that like the soaker tub was in. It was like echoing in my ears. But this was one of the times where I was so thankful that I had both my husband and my sister there, because they were like getting sweated out in the bathroom with me because I had my water nice and warm. And so they were like kind of going in and out and like taking turns with that. And that was really helpful. And then, so I kind of stayed in there until I felt like my contractions were more like, felt like a tension band pulling down instead of just like getting tight around my midsection. And I was like, I really don't want to have the baby in here. Like, it's really small. My IV pulls in the way. Like, that would just be annoying. So I got out and I had them check me again, and I was at a 7. And I was like, okay, hopefully we can go after this. Like, hopefully this just goes really, really fast. And they were like, let's try the peanut ball. The peanut ball is magic. Like, let's do 5 contractions on one side, 5 contractions on the other side. So they had literally just checked me and I was at a 7. I rolled to my left side and I had 1 contraction that was so intense. It was just the weirdest feeling. It was so strong, but not like super painful. It was just very, very intense. And I remember saying, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And one of the nurses was like, you can, I promise you can. Like, you're almost there. Like, my nurses were incredible and they were so supportive. And then I remember in my head, I was like, when moms say they can't do it, that's usually when like doulas are like, ooh, like it's happening, like things are moving now. And I was like, I'm only at a 7. I literally just got checked. But then I felt the most intense pressure of my life. And I was like, she is coming out right now. And the nurses were like, no, she's not. Like, we just checked you. She's at a 7. And I looked at my sister and I was like, look down. She is coming out. And my sister looked and she was like, oh my goodness, her head is out. And so I was like, get this peanut ball out of my legs. Like, I need to roll over because she's just going to like fall out. And my doctor wasn't even in the room yet. He was still in his clinic, which is like attached to the hospital, but they were like calling him. And they were like, don't push. And I was like, that is the most impossible task for you to ask me to do right now. Like, I'm not pushing, my body is. Yeah. And so they didn't get like the bed taken apart or anything. My doctor didn't get in the room, and like, she just kind of like came out onto the table that I was laying on. And her cord, she actually had a nuchal cord wrapped around, and it was so tight it was cutting off her circulation. So they actually had to snip it when her head came out before the rest of her body came out. And there was like a nurse who was an older nurse. She had been there for a while, that she knew to do that, which I was very thankful for because the other 2 were pretty young. But that's pretty much how it happened. They had to take her back to the warmer, and they did end up having to do the CPAP for about a minute before she started breathing on her own. But once she was, they brought her right over to me for skin to skin and nursing. And so I was really thankful in that moment that I had decided to get induced at the hospital, because I was like, had I been at home like during a blizzard by myself, if that would have happened, it could have been a completely different outcome. So I'm glad. I think it was kind of a mama's instinct and intuition that I felt like I really needed to be at the hospital for some reason this time, and that my sister was there because she really like kept me grounded, because John obviously went over by the baby right away, and I was kind of like freaking out, like what just happened in the last 5 seconds. And so she really kept me grounded, and I was really thankful that she was there.
That's awesome. Your story has some similarities to mine. I don't know how much of my story you know. With my third, we were in North Dakota, and we had a home birth midwife. And the weekend that my due date, like there was a blizzard that weekend and I was like, my midwife's not going to make it. Like, even if I give birth right now. And so I gave birth the next weekend and I thought, thank goodness. And this is in May, right? So you expect the blizzards to not be there anymore. Anyways, so she made it. But I remember thinking if he would have come last weekend, we would have had a major problem. Like she wouldn't have gotten, and she was like 2 hours away from me, you know? So anyways, that's so interesting. Timing is everything, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep. God had his hand in it. That's for sure.
Yeah. But I love it. I love it so much. Will you take a moment and maybe tell me what your early contractions felt like, if you remember, and you can describe them, because you did talk about how there was a shift and they started pulling down. So talk about those early contractions and what they felt like, the later ones. And then I want to ask you how you worked through them after that.
Yep. The first ones I would say very much felt like I was going to get my period. Like they really started in the back and they kind of just started like a dull ache. And that's really where I found a lot of my relief, was if someone was like pressing on my back, because the early ones, even up until I got in the tub, I would say they were really in my lower back, and it was just a really intense ache feeling. Like I kind of felt like I was coming down with something, like when you get sick and your body just gets super achy. And so it felt really good. I actually brought to the hospital, my sister did actually, one of those things that you can hold that has the ball on it and the ball moves.
The ball massager.
And so when I was on the labor ball, my husband and my sister were taking turns doing that over my lower back during contractions. And that felt so good, just because I felt so achy and kind of yuck. And then when I was walking, they really kind of started to wrap around the front of my stomach, and they kind of just felt lower. The top of my stomach just kind of felt tight, and then lower, it kind of felt like a muscle was getting pulled or something like that. Like if you pull an ab muscle or something, and it felt like I could really feel like precisely where it was down lower in my uterus. And then in the bathtub, they were very much felt like that, like a tight muscle was getting pulled around the front of my stomach. And then when they shifted, it felt like someone was almost like pulling one of my muscles down. Like I could feel that, like it was like definitely more of a downward motion than just getting all tight. And so that's when I think things started like shifting and moving into the different direction.
And did it stay that feeling till you had the pushing sensation?
Yes. Yep, it did. I mean, I think so, because I only had like the 3 contractions between when I got out and when I had her. But
I can't tell you how many times I have seen the peanut ball literally do just that. And you already knew that you were going to go fast. But when they're saying it's magic, it's a real thing. Like you get that body in the right position and it's like, oh, shoot. I've had the same thing where it's like, I'm just going to peek under there myself, because I could tell something in mom had changed, and she gave that like oomph sound, but there was a release with it. And I'm like, we've got a head, you know, so it happens more often than you can imagine. They're wonderful, wonderful tools.
Yeah, it really is magic. When she was like, it's magic, I was like, okay, I'm going to be stuck here for like another 30 minutes. But I was like, oh my gosh, that thing is magic.
Tell me, you talked a little bit about using water. Was there, what kind of like labor positions did you use, or what techniques did you use throughout labor to like physically feel good during that time, or as best as you could feel more comfortable?
When I was not in the bath yet, swaying felt so good. Like when I was walking in the hallway, I just hold on. They have the railings down the hallway, and I would just hold on to it and just sway back and forth. And something about like my hips shifting, I don't know what it was, but it just felt so good. It felt like I was just trying to like kind of like shimmy her down to get engaged, and it felt so good swaying like that. And the ball I liked for the fact that like my husband could kind of sway me, instead of like if my legs were getting tired or something, he could kind of sway me while he was working on that lower back during contractions and stuff. So I kind of liked that took kind of the work off of me and onto him a little bit. His arms were probably sore by the end of it. But that helped a lot too. But then once things kind of started getting more intense and I could feel that she was down lower, I didn't like the ball as much, because it kind of felt like I was like counter pressuring her instead of helping me with my pain. So then that's when I decided to get in the tub. In the tub, I really just kind of stayed in one position. I was kind of relaxed back on my back, and I had a wireless monitor on, so that was like up higher on my stomach, and I couldn't submerge it, but I could get wet. So I had a little cup that we were like pouring water over my stomach, and that helped a lot during contractions, kind of something to think about. But I kind of, once I got into that labor land, I felt like I didn't want to move a ton because I was like, I feel like I'm going to lose my focus. Like I was like, this feels really good right now. I feel like my body was doing what it was supposed to be doing. I felt like I could feel myself progressing. So I was like, if it ain't broke, I'm not going to fix it. Like this position feels good. I can tell that it's working. And so I just kind of like stayed where it felt comfortable. And the warm water felt so good on my back too. So I was just kind of felt like it was like my little rest time before things got crazy. I was just kind of leaning back and relaxing and kind of working through them that way.
Yeah. How about your mind? Were there things like as time progressed and you definitely like there's a time where you're like not talking out loud during contractions or in between, was there some like positive self-talk or mantras or anything that you had going on that were really helpful?
My sister and my husband, like every single time, once I got to the tub, pretty much, I really wasn't talking to them that much. And they were very much like, do you need ice? Do you need this? And my sister had like uplifting essential oil mixes, like with orange to like wake me up a little bit and help me like feel energized. And every time I'd have a contraction, which I think my sister knew this because she knows I'm kind of self-conscious about the way that I like talk and do things. But every time I'd have a contraction and I have to moan through it, she'd be like, that was awesome, Taryn, like great work. Like you could tell you were working through that one so good. And she just kept saying, you look so relaxed. You look like you're handling it so well. So like, I'm kind of a person that if you talk me up, I'm like, yeah, I am kind of awesome. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
And so I think she knew that very well, obviously, about my personality. So I think the more that her and my husband encouraged me, the more I was like, you're right, I am Superwoman. Like I can do this, instead of like in my head being like, oh my gosh, if this lasts for however much longer, like I'm not sure I can do this. But then right when I would be thinking that thought, they would be like, you got this. That was so awesome. Then I was like, oh yeah, yep, you're right. I do have this. Like they kind of help center me and bring me back to remembering how awesome women are and that we can do it.
Oh, I love that. Support is everything. They sound like they are really excellent for you. Was there anything, did you have anything like spiritual or like I've been asking this question recently just about, and I think I kind of take it from my third birth where if you listen to it at all, like I had a really spiritual experience with my third birth. And I remember at the end thinking like, why didn't I think to pray or like tune in sooner? But anyways, and it led me to what I do today. So it just makes me wonder, and we talk about this being this sacred space. Was there anything that stood out to you that way?
Yes, I am a very religious person. We listen to worship music all the time at home. And I wish that I had turned on my Christian music sooner because I'm very like the way that I feel close to God is with praise and worship. So I wish that I had turned that on sooner. But my sister actually asked me, she was like, is there some music you want? Because she knows I love music. And we turned on Elevation Worship and just like let their playlist go through. And it was so great to just feel like I was kind of like singing it in my head. I obviously couldn't sing it out loud, but like I know all the words so well that it was just kind of automatic to sing it in my head. And it kind of felt like I was worshiping through it. And it just felt like he was just like so close. And it's just really like, instead of being like, I can get through one contraction at a time, it's kind of like, I don't know if I'm strong enough to, but with God, I can like get through one more contraction. And it was just really a process of just trusting that everything was going to turn out the way that it was supposed to. Like I wasn't really trusting, like with my firstborn, I was like, is everything okay, doctor? Like really needed reassurance from someone else. And this time I was very much just like, I don't need reassurance from anyone else. Like I know God has it in his hands. So that helped a lot. And then my sister, right when my daughter wasn't breathing when she came out and they brought her back to the warmer, like the first thing my sister did was just start praying like over the room and over her. And I feel like that was really, really cool because I was terrified and I was just looking at her and I could just see that she was praying. And so it really felt like you could like just feel the presence in the room and just really feel like God's hand was in it all. And the people that were there were the ones that were supposed to be there. And so that helped a lot.
That's really neat. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Before we go, I love to ask moms at the end, what if you could give your best advice to other moms that are listening, what would that be? And then same question for if you could give partners the very best advice you have, what would that be?
For moms, I would say don't underestimate how important practice and the mental game is. Because with my first two, I definitely did. And I was just like, I got this. I was going to go in on a whim. does not work that way. Like you need to put in the work for sure, to get yourself mentally prepared and exercise your mental strength to be able to do it. Also, a super random thing that I just wanted to make sure people know is honey sticks are the best thing in the world. My sister, she was like, I was looking up like a bunch of things on Pinterest of what like doulas say that really helps. And she's like, honey sticks are a thing, I guess. And I slurped those suckers down so fast. Like they were so energizing and just like gave me a different flavor in my mouth. Like,
yeah.
Even if you're going to use an epidural, get honey sticks. They give you energy and they're awesome. But then for partners, I would say just be supportive, trust your partner that she knows what she needs. And if she says stop doing something or start doing something, it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. She's just trying to listen to her body and tell you what feels best to try and accomplish the birth that she wants.
I love that. Yeah. Note on honey sticks really quick. And this is something I kind of I have in my birth bags and everything with me because 100%. So at the hospitals or wherever you're at, right? Like they do have things like you can have popsicles, you can have soda or whatever it is. And the reason for that is right, we need a little boost. So sugar can do that. Sugar gets you the boost fast, but it crashes you really hard too. But honey is wonderful because you get that boost fast, but it tapers off and it doesn't crash. So, and then I love how you're talking about yes, the different flavors in the mouth and stuff. Because even though you might not be hungry during labor, you do hit a point where you're like, I can't eat anymore, but your mouth might taste gross and you also need some energy. So yes, honey. Yep. And they have different flavors too. I don't know if you did any of the different flavored honey sticks, but they have the pure and then they've got the orange or the strawberry or the whatever. And that's fun too. So.
Yep. And then I was putting it in I was still drinking my red raspberry leaf tea through labor too. And so I was like, nice. Between that and the honey sticks, I was like, we got this.
That's awesome.
I'm full of it.
Taryn, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your birth story here for the world. I am really, really grateful for it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm thankful for you and your podcast. I really feel like this is probably our last kid and I finally got the delivery that I wanted. So I'm very thankful for that.
That's awesome.
That's it for this week, but make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you get notifications first as I drop a new episode every week. And don't forget to head over to myessentialbirth.com for all of the free downloads mentioned here and to join the birth course and community serving pregnant moms just like you. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, I would love it if you would take a few minutes to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I read every single one and include one at the beginning of each episode. See you next week.